Hello, how's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. So, yeah, any question that you have about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated or about, political discourse or whatever, you just throw that question in the chat. I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I don't believe in making fun of people for not knowing things. I don't believe in making fun of people for having different political opinions than me. I'm not here to call people stupid or try to roast people or ridicule them. There's no judgments here. There's no debates here. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. Partysaurus! Politics party! Excellent start to the live chat today. All right. So, yeah, any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. There's no such thing as a dumb question. So, if you have any party sources, could you elaborate on the Texas redistricting, please? Sure. Redistricting usually happens every 10 years when the census happens, so that we know where the population has shifted and where there's more people now than there used to be. And so we can redraw those lines based on, making sure that every citizen in this country has equal representation. Now, it is wildly unprecedented for Texas to be thinking about redistricting in the middle of a decade as opposed to at the end of the decade. I don't know if it's technically illegal or not, but it is unethical and definitely not normal. And so, yeah, it's basically cheating. It is cheating. They are choosing their voters instead of the voters choosing their representatives. It is something that the Republican Party does a lot. They do this kind of cheating in every state that they can, and the Democrats do some gerrymandering in response. But the Democrats have also been the only party that's tried to end partisan gerrymandering by making it illegal. But the Republicans blocked that bill, so they weren't able to pass it. So yeah, it's unprecedented. It is sort of like an escalation in the gerrymandering war by the Republican Party, and I am heartened to hear that there are other governors like J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom who are threatening to do extreme, mid-decade gerrymanders in response, to try to make sure that the playing field is as more equal as it can be. Jen Spective says, I'm paying $5,000 to the first 5 people to message me. God did. What a weird thing to say. Let's see here. Talk Radio, God News Talk says wildly. Cool. All right, Samurai Destroyer, how's it going? Good to see you again over on Twitch. If anybody's got any questions about politics, this is the place where you can ask them. There's no judgments, there's no roasting here, there's no debating. I am not here to yell at people or make fun of them. If there are questions that you don't feel comfortable asking people in person because you're worried that they will paint you as a MAGA person or a libtard person, you can ask those questions here. And there's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. One Festive Bagel says, how do you feel about Democrats using dead people to vote? That doesn't happen, One Festive Bagel. You also asked a question yesterday that was wildly inaccurate, so I don't find it strange that you were asking more right-wing propaganda questions. Samurai Destroyer says, do you think college in some way is a scam, like to some extent due to lack of transparency about the job market and prospect for the students? I mean, I wouldn't say it's a scam. I would say that the goalposts have been moved in a way that is very unfair to young people, where it no longer counts to get a college education. It's way more expensive to get a college education. And now kids are being told that if you want to have an edge in the job market, you have to get a graduate degree instead of just a bachelor's. And so, yeah, I think that there are really valuable things that you get when you go to college, but I don't know if it's worth the money that it costs right now. I don't know if it's worth burdening yourself with that much student loan debt. Even though student loan debt can be very financially beneficial, where if what was I going to say, it can like help protect you from other debtors should you get into financial straits. If I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, and they tend to be very low interest rates, loans and stuff like that. But still, it's a difficult choice. And where before it was kind of a no-brainer, just like get your college degree, It's not that expensive, and it's a good backup plan for, if you need to get some sort of a job in the future, some sort of, you have to settle for something in the future. Now, I'm not really sure if that value proposition exists anymore. Yu Zurao says, "Do you like Trump?" No, I do not. Yorkshire Man in Polska says, "Reese's Pieces or Milk Duds?" The public needs to know. I'm more of a Milk Duds person because I don't like peanut butter. True North says, "Does Israel run America? Media, banks, pro sports, etc.?" No. Israel has a lot of influence over our politicians, but it is false to say that they run America. Just Another Guy says, "I'm playing Spyro right now. I want no negativity near me." Well, you won't hear any here, my guy. Let's see here. N5RTN says, "Hey guys, good morning and afternoon." Good morning to you. You Zarawa says, "Name one thing you like about Republicans." Why do I need to do that? Let's see here. K4YD says, "Trump or Kamala?" What a weird question. The election's over. Dan Blackroyd says, "It was a lot of now see here. I bought this house for $700 working at the bottle cap factory." Yeah, times they are a changing, my guy. True North says, "Correct. They have enough influence to run America." Yeah, but you know why they have that influence, True North, is because people keep on falling for their propaganda. APAC keeps on promoting certain politicians over other politicians and using all of their money and influence to get their politicians elected. And so when APAC threatens our current elected officials with a primary challenge or supporting their challenger in the general election, they have a record of successfully doing that. So it really is the fault of the American people for continuing to vote for these politicians that are influenced by APEC and are beholden to APEC because they take so much of their campaign donations. There are two progressive Democrats that lost their primaries because they stood up to Israel. This has happened like 2 years ago or something like that. And yeah, you know, and so I would prove to APAC that they should not be doing this by voting against politicians that don't take their money, guys. All right. N5RTN says, "What's the biggest concern in your book?" I feel like that's something we haven't asked. I mean, it's difficult to whittle it down to, one specific thing, but, they are cutting regulations for polluters. Greenhouse gases are no longer bad for you, according to the Environmental Protection Agency right now. That's wildly concerning. They have defunded a lot of scientific and medical research. So we're going to be a generation behind every other country where medicines and technology is concerned. I'm really concerned about ICE, a completely lawless rogue agency, Trump's personal Gestapo, having their budget increased 360%. And they're building fucking concentration camps and acting without any sort of legal oversight. Like all of that stuff. The threats to jail Trump's political enemies, like that's extremely concerning. Trying to jerry rig electoral systems so that they never have to worry about any fair elections going forward. Further capturing the information sphere by putting political pressure on news organizations like CBS and Paramount to only put forward narratives that they find beneficial to them. Like there's just so many things that these guys are doing that is just like wildly terrible for everybody. All right. Connor says, "How do you feel about Israel and the APAC funding?" I'm against it. I am against the Netanyahu government. They're doing a genocide in Palestine. I'm against APAC. They are an extremely right-wing organization. N5RTN says, "The United States is at a low right now. I hope some light comes." We can be that light. N5, join me. Be part of the light with me, my guy. Dirty Red OK says, "Yet this guy said none of this about the previous administration." No, I didn't. I said all this stuff about the previous administration. The thing that I said, Dirty Red OK, is that regardless of how bad Biden is on this issue, Trump will be worse, and I have been proven right. So there you go. Connor, I already answered that question. Don't spam the comments. Triska says, "There are so many evil things this administration is doing. Can't even begin to list them all." Completely agree with you there. All right. Samurai Destroyer says, "Do you think government student loan is a factor of why college tuition is expensive?" Honestly, Samurai Destroyer, I do not feel qualified to answer that question. I think there are a lot of factors. I think part of the issue is also colleges' endowments, where they just kind of like build wealth instead of actually using it to help their students. Tate Berry says, I came in here a month ago, last time I saw your live, and you educated me. Just want to say thanks. Oh, thank you, Tate Berry. I appreciate you being here. Vala Agency says, college got expensive when the government got involved. I don't know if I agree with that. Connor US says, sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you just give me a brief reminder when you get the chance? Yes, I am against the Netanyahu government. I am against AIPAC. They're extreme right-wing organizations. N5 RTN says, I'm down, bro, because it's our future, and I feel like people don't realize how much it impacts. Have you checked out the Discord, man? Because I got a Discord with a whole bunch of things on it that people can do to get more involved and to be more educated about what's going on. And basically, it's a thread that I call the work, where it's just like, this is what everybody needs to be doing in order to fix what is currently going on. All right. Boone Cash says, China is kicking our ass. Yes, thanks to the Trump administration, China is kicking our ass. Mr. Swift Crashmore says, so you're okay with the military staying in tents, but non-citizens staying in the same tents? I don't know what that means, Mr. Swift Crashmore. Alrighty, let's see here. Sean Robinson says, is there a politician who can win without AIPAC and Israel backing? There are, but there are more politicians who can't, because politics means raising a ton of money thanks to the Republican Party, forwarding the exact kind of policies that make it so that money dictates our politics. If you have somebody who's like already wildly popular and well known with a lot of name ID, like Bernie Sanders or AOC or Jasmine Crockett or Maxwell Frost, then maybe they can exist without AIPAC money. But there are a bunch of down ballot politicians who are just going to get fucking trounced by AIPAC money coming in and supporting their primary challenger. Cory Bush, and there was another one whose name I can't really remember. They got fucking, they were popular, but they got fucked by AIPAC money. Alrighty, Q Bank says, I'm paying $5,000 for the first 5 people to inbox me. It's legitimate. That doesn't seem legitimate, Q Banks, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of you right now. All right, Diego Vargas says, isn't China in a crisis of their own, not reporting unemployment and a debt higher than ours? I don't know about that, Diego Vargas. I can only tell you about the ways in which the Trump trade war has facilitated China becoming the new global leader, both in morality, like they're the ones now going to the aid of starving communities in different countries and then getting first dibs and all their valuable rare earth minerals and shit like that. They're going to lap us in technology, both medical and otherwise. They're lapping us on green energy. They have way better electric cars, cheaper solar panels. Like, they are going to be running the green energy future of every progressive Democrat's dream, with high-speed rail and no coal plants or, burning oil and shit like that, while we're still fucking chucking down fucking fossil fuel fumes over here and getting lung cancer as a response to it. And they're going to fucking their economy is going to continue growing because they're trading with everybody else, as opposed to us putting fucking 50% tariffs on everybody. So fewer of our goods are going out, fewer of their goods are coming in, but it's a fucking flea market, like they're fucking trading with Brazil and Russia and fucking everybody, Alrighty, Tap says, do you support socialism? I do support things like nationalized healthcare and stuff like that. I wouldn't say that we've never seen a country that was 100% socialist, the same way that we've never seen a country that is 100% capitalist or 100% communist. It's always been a mixed model. And I think that we should encourage more socialism and communism in America. Big says, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. The Owl American says, what? They literally have the most pollution out of all the countries. They used to, the Real American, but they don't anymore. Ismanut says, let me ask you a few questions on guest. I almost never do that, Ismanut, but if you ask a couple questions in the chat, prove to me that you're here in good faith, and maybe I will change my mind. N5RTN says, when do you feel the United States government helped its people? Oh, many times. The Affordable Care Act. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act. Let's see here. The child tax credits, the payments that went out during the pandemic helped people to survive. Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, Social Security, protections for unions, workers' rights, discrimination rights, the civil rights amendment, women's suffrage, tons of times. Big says, why did you vote Democrat? Just asking, I personally didn't vote. That's a really big question. There's there are a lot of issues, big, that are covered in both the Republican platform and the Democratic platform, in addition to issues that we've seen their records on, as far as like, uh, doing something about climate change or taxing billionaires or supporting free and fair elections and supporting unions and, like a host of issues. And as far as like the platforms go and as far as the records go, the Democratic Party is always better. And so, yeah, if there's a specific issue that you find interesting or important, big, then let me know what that is, and I can tell you more specifically why I think Democrats are better on that issue than Republicans. But generally speaking, yeah, the platforms on the Democratic side are better. I'm voting for the platform of the Democratic Party in addition to voting against the platform of the Republican Party. The Real American says, do you believe we should cap the profit corporations make from 3 to 4 bedroom homes? It's a difficult situation. I think that you don't want to get too involved in price caps because then you end up hurting the economy. We tried this during the Nixon administration, and it is widely credited with, I believe, like the inflation that happened during that time. But in general, I am for capping massively profitable giant corporations and billionaires because they have enough and the rest of us need more. Tap says, do you believe car corporations make a lot of decisions for both parties? Not particularly. N5RTN says, you're telling me Trump won't do what Israel does to Gaza? I believe it. You're telling me Trump won't do what Israel does to Gaza? What? I'm not really sure what that question means there. Tab says, do you believe powerful corporations make decisions for both parties? I believe that people that have a lot of money, like powerful corporations, for example, influence our politics because there is a disease, a rampant pandemic of the influence of money in our politics, thanks to things like Citizens United and Ted Cruz v. United States. Now, but that being said, there is a difference between the way that money influences the Democratic Party and money influences the Republican Party. Because money and the Republican Party's platform go hand in hand. Like the Republican Party's platform is to cut taxes for billionaires so that they have more money to give to Republicans so that they can get elected, and cut more taxes for billionaires so that they have more money so that they can give to the Republican Party so that they can get elected, and cut more taxes for billionaires, etc. We've seen this pattern play out time and time again. The Democratic Party, by contrast, more often than not, what you see is politicians accepting money from giant corporations and billionaires just to stay competitive. And then, yes, they are unconsciously affected by having accepted that money. Like they've done psychological tests. Like we know that people are, even if they try not to be affected by that, they are affected by that. But it is against the Democratic Party's platform. What ends up happening is they water down their own policy objectives in order to maintain good relationships with those corporations and billionaires, as opposed to the platform itself being a giveaway to the billionaire class. So if you want this cycle to stop, like all you got to do is vote for more Democrats, because the more Republicans you vote for, you dampen down the power of the Democratic Party, and you are telling the billionaire class what you're doing is working. The way that you try to influence elections to elect Republicans, like it's working, you know? All right, scroll down to the bottom. Let's see here. Big says, I don't like that party because I think they victimize my community and not help where really needed. Who victimizes your community? Giancarlo says, hi, Jared. Do you think the current strategy of Dems is wise to sit back and cruise to the midterms? I don't think that's what the Democrats are doing. There are tons of Democrats out there who are demanding that the Trump administration and Republicans abide by the law. They're doing the work of having town halls and barnstorming across the country where their Republican representatives are too scared to go. There are some Democrats that are playing it more safe and centrist, but yeah, there's dozens of Democrats that are leading this fight and trying to change the narrative, do the good messaging, do the good work, etc. Let's see here. Big says, I'm a black American. I don't think Democrats do the right things. Big, I appreciate that you might feel that way, but I find it interesting. Because of the two parties, the Democratic Party generally passes more legislation that helps the African American community than the Republican Party. The Republican Party tends to pass legislation that hurts the African American community. So even if the Democratic Party is flawed and doesn't always live up to their ideals, like, don't you think it's better to vote for the better of the two options? Big. Luke says, do you think Trump is radical? Absolutely, 100%. And radical not in the sense of like, yeah, he's dope. It's radical, bro. In the sense of he is extreme and he is, yeah, damaging. Diego Vargas says, is a stable dictatorship like China more effective than a fragile democracy? I mean, there are ways in which authoritarian governments can be more productive than countries essentially run by committee, the way that the way that democracies are. But there's always concerns in authoritarian governments when you take power away from the population. You know, like, what if the government does something to their citizens? What mechanism do the citizens have besides violent uprising to try to change that system? That's what's beneficial about being in a democracy, is that you have rights as a citizen to protect you from government overreach, and if the government doesn't respect those values, then you have the right to vote them out of power and change the government. Tap 2001 says, with 100% honesty, who do you think on the Democratic side can beat JD Vance? JD Vance has 0 riz, so I don't believe that Democrats would have a problem beating him. Big says, I feel it's usually like headline grabbers. In my opinion, I think we should be able to govern our communities because we haven't had that chance for hundreds of years. I'm not really sure. Diego Vargas, yeah, I did see it was a quote, but I'm not really sure who that person was that you were. Oh, I'm quoting Machiavelli or Machiavello. I don't know who Machiavello is. Is that just like a different pronunciation of that? Big. When you say that you should be able to govern your own communities, like, don't you feel like there are, you know, people in your community that run for political office or represent your community, both as like city aldermen or city councilors or state house members or state senators and stuff like that? Tap 2001 says, who has the most potential for the Democratic Party in 2028? I always punt on this question, Tap, because I'm not trying to wish cast for 2028. I'm trying to get people focused on the midterms in 2026. Big, so I'm not trying to be rude or contrarian. I actually really like this live for the first time here. Big, you know, I'm not calling you rude or contrarian. I'm just asking, like, how is it that you have not seen your community being represented by the government? You know, I can understand, like, if your state senator doesn't represent you because they're like a white guy or whatever. But surely on some local level, you have some representative that you feel represents your community. If that is that not the case, let me know. Let's see here. Kyle O'Malley says, why shouldn't we investigate Obama and Hillary Pelosi's shift? Goes on and on. Kyle, those people have been investigated thoroughly, and nobody has ever found anything on them. So, yeah, what do you believe hasn't been investigated about those people that needs to be investigated? Diego Vargas says, it will be Newsom, hopefully. He doesn't choose Mayor Pete as VP. You know, we'll see who wins the primary. I don't really do. Newsom's not my first choice by a long shot. So, Scope 78 says $37 trillion in debt. Should we be worried? I think you should be worried, 100%. Normally, the debt is a cudgel that the right uses to try to cut social programs, but the Republican Party is cutting social programs and increasing the debt because they keep on cutting taxes for the billionaire class and shit like that. And with interest rates being as high as they are, for the first time in a long time, like, the debt really is a big fucking deal that the next generation is going to be saddled with. Right. Let's see here. Keith Schultz says, we have now, and smoking gun email from Bernardo. That seems like bullshit. Nostradamus, good to see you again, says, can we believe that Trump's influence was a small part of why Colbert is gone, but it was the money? I don't know. You know, it seems pretty quid pro quo to me, where they wanted their merger approved, and so they did this as like a sacrificial lamb kind of a thing. Colbert had the most profitable of all the late night shows, so even though it was losing money, it was still doing better than the shows that were not canceled. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, this is the reason why you shouldn't have presidents like Donald Trump who obviously give favor to corporations that do the things that are beneficial to him, as opposed to, you know, governing for all of America. Right. Big says, for example, majority of judges are white and they don't know the depth of what's been going on. All right, Big. So let me ask you this. Do you live in a district where the judges are either elected or appointed, because if they're elected, then you could potentially run somebody to replace them. If they are appointed, then you should talk to your local representatives about appointing more African American judges, so that you have the kind of representation that you want. The thing I'm trying to communicate, big above everything, is that we are the ones that are in charge of the government. Like, it is up to us. It's up to us to organize and vote and educate people. And yeah, it's work, and I hate doing it, but that's the way that our government is organized. Is that we have the power to change these things. And depending on who's in charge, they make that change either harder or easier. Like right now, the Trump administration is making it really hard for us to do that work. But it is still our work to do. There are more people that don't vote than vote in this country. So if we did the work of getting those voters to go out there and vote for people that we feel represent us better, then we can make that change happen. We can have better local, state, and federal governments if we just do the work and we get other people to do the work with us. It's too big of a job for one person to do. But if you organize with like 5 of your friends and you start a political action group, then you can make substantive change happen. And I would recommend you check out a group called Indivisible, which provides people with the resources to learn how to do exactly that. Big. All right. Kyle O'Malley says, when did they investigate Obama for Russia, Pelosi for stocks findings? They did that during the first Trump administration. And Marco Rubio, who is currently the Secretary of State, was the chairman of the Oversight Committee at the time. I believe it was Oversight. And he signed off on it. And he said, these guys are cleared of all their charges. This investigation was top notch. Completely Lawless says, Dem party seems stuck between wings. Do they go more progressive or moderate from here? My personal opinion is that it's fine that the Democratic Party represents both the progressives and the centrists and everything in between, because the Democratic Party is a rainbow coalition. We have people from every religion and race and gender and sexuality. So why not have it be representative of the AOCs and the Pelosi's in America? Now, personally, what do I think is the winning strategy? I'm a progressive. I think the progressive message is much more attractive. It leaves the Democratic Party open to being called communists and socialists, of course, which, I mean, the right's going to do regardless of if if Nancy Pelosi was our nominee, But, I think that America is moving in that way, and they're tired of billionaires fucking everybody over. So, but I'm sure there's some very smart pollsters who would disagree with me on that. I'm not going to die on the mountain of every Democrat running in every one of the 50 states should be like a Mamdani, because maybe there are states where that wouldn't work, Alrighty. Tap says, do you believe Kamala Harris could win a presidential primary for the first time? Yeah, maybe. Angry Long Island Vet says, who do you want to run for president in 28? I always punt on this question because I'm not trying to wish cast for 28. I'm trying to keep people focused on the midterms in 26. Diego Vargas says, the Pelosi's and Bidens have had the power. We need people like Mamdani. Completely agree. Bob Sakamano says, how old are you? 46. Let's see here. Big. I am catching up on your comments here. Big. Let's see here. Let's see. Within our communities, so they don't know how to help us. They give us an extra percentage. A lot of our cities that we have were governing ourselves and thriving got burned down like Tulsa. I completely agree with that. Big. Obviously, that was a fucking unbelievable tragedy that does not get taught in history classes nearly enough. Big says, not that I like Trump, but I think he is what my community needs to really realize what's going on, because he's a crash out and has no filter. We know exactly what they're using against us. I mean, that's an interesting theory, Big. I've heard that before, that because Trump is a bull in a china shop, that he's going to break the system enough for us to make real substantive changes. My problem with that is that the changes that he is making as he's destroying everything are hurting marginalized communities, poor people, working class people, minorities, I wouldn't be surprised if, people in your community were feeling it as well because of all the cuts that he's making to various government programs. And we can disagree on that, but, like the milk has been spilled at that point. My point remains the same, though. Like, what are some ways that you could do work to make the kind of changes that you want to see in your community? Like, I would love to help get you more involved there. You know, I can argue back and forth about why I think the Democratic Party is better than the Republican Party and why we should support them and try to get them elected, if only to unelect every Republican. But it sounds like you just don't like how you're being represented, and there are ways that we can change that, you know, together. N5 RTN says, sometimes I feel like Vance is just a kid who went to work with his grandpa. Yeah, you know, I get that vibe. Samurai Destroyer over on Twitch says, what's your view on Cenk Uygur arguments that establishment Democrats are a failure and that we need left-wing populism? I don't like him. He always seems way more invested in throwing stones at the Democratic Party than taking down the Republican Party, which I think is much more important. But I mean, you know, I don't love establishment Democrats. I don't love how fragile they are. And I also don't blame them for that fragility. Like, for decades, they've been getting yelled at no matter what they do, and they're being told simultaneously that they are too far to the left and too far to the right and doing too much and doing too little. The way that right-wing media has demonized the establishment Democrats is criminal, you know, and they have to fear for their lives. And poor Nancy Pelosi's husband got fucking attacked with a hammer and shit like that. But yeah, I still think that it is unproductive to run their same old playbook, you know? So I don't disagree with him on this necessarily. I just think that it is a weird false equivalency to spend so much time denigrating the Democratic Party when the Republican Party is doing things that are so much worse. You know, the analogy that I always make is, imagine that you run like a 7-Eleven and there's some kids reading magazines, and so you decide to spend your time yelling at the kids reading the magazines instead of doing something about the dude that's stabbing you in the throat. All right, Diego Vargas says, did Bill Maher go full MAGA normalizing Trump and shit? Bill Maher is an old man who has completely fucking lost touch. He is basing all of his political opinions on vibes and what he sees on his propaganda machines. He is no longer actually doing the research. He doesn't actually give a shit about what's going on. He's taking in all the right-wing centrist propaganda and spewing it back out at us. The dude is just fucking wrong. He got fucking dinner with Trump, and he's like, he seems like a perfectly nice guy to me. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Alrighty. E-Girl Ideal says, what do you think about the Democratic support for the genocide in Gaza? I think it is atrocious. E-Girl Ideal. But, and I think this is really important to keep in mind, the Republican Party is worse on this issue. Half of the Democratic senators voted against continuing to send aid and money and weapons to Israel. Every Republican voted for it. The Democrats are the only ones who are speaking out about this, except for like Marjorie Taylor Greene and shit like that, where the Republican parties are saying, yeah, let's just fucking nuke Gaza and fucking get rid of it. And Trump is saying, let's ethnically cleanse Gaza and I can build Trump towers there. And fucking, what's his name? Some Republican representative was told that children are being starved in Gaza right now, and his response was, starve away. I dare you to find me one Democrat that is that fucking callous. Alrighty, N5 RTN says, what does Tucker Carlson and Christian and Charlie Kirk do? I hate seeing these people. They're liars. They're just fucking liars and bullshit artists. They know that they make a lot of money by spreading right-wing propaganda on social media, and they get to be famous and rich because of it, so they do it. Uncle Hippie says, people who are sensitive can see the obvious fakeness oozing out of Trump. I mean, I don't think you need to be that sensitive. It's pretty fucking obvious, you know? Luke Deca says, if you were in Trump's shoes, what would you do now? I'd fucking resign and go to jail because I've done too much evil that I need to make up for. N5 RTN says, billionaire haven in Gaza. I would hate my tax dollars to participate in a genocide. Yeah, completely agree with that. Alrighty, let's see here. John Wally says, why do you need he, him in your bio? You know, to signal support for the trans community, I guess. Sir Squincelot says, Bill Maher flip-flops to the side that makes him more money. I think it's less complicated than that, Sir Squincelot. I think he's just an old and uninformed man who does not recognize that he is being influenced by propaganda and misinformation. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom. Ace, great to see you again. Says, who should be the Democratic candidate? Ace, if you become a regular of the show, you will learn that I always punt on this question because I'm not trying to focus on 28. I'm trying to focus on 26. We got midterm elections coming up that we need to win. We need to unelect every Republican so that they feel electoral consequences for the fucking shit that they have done and that they have let happen this fucking year. It is unconscionable what they have done. And if they are not unelected, they will continue doing this shit to us and worse. All right, Donald Trump 420. I am not the Epstein files. I don't know why GOP congressman won't release them. Call your congressman. Donald Trump 420, you continue to evade me, man. What is your deal, guy? Lindsay Reed says, what about what Pete said about trans people? I haven't seen it. I have heard that people are upset about what Pete Buttigieg said about trans people. And I do not believe that any Democrat actually has conservative beliefs about trans issues. I believe that they are hedging their bets so that they can appeal to the center to win the presidential election in 28. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it's probably going to do more damage to themselves and the Democratic Party than help. But that's, that's fucking politics. And if you don't like it, vote for someone else in the primary. Alrighty. Lemoyne says, what is your opinion on PF? What's PF? Swiftly Engaged says, yes, over in Texas, we are going to have our work cut out for us gerrymandering. Completely agree with that. The Real Chase is, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Scooby Drew says, it is the right thing to do, man. I mean, if you say so. Donald Trump 420, I'm not reading those anymore. Ace says, if you want to be in office, you shouldn't be allowed to have stocks. I completely agree with that, Ace. And guess what? Every Democrat voted with Josh Hawley to pass a bill to make it so that elected officials cannot have stocks while they are in office. And every Republican voted against it. So, Ace, again, if this is an issue that you care about, you have to vote for Democrats. That is the only way that we make that change. And just a side note, Josh Hawley is completely fucking full of shit. He goes out there and talks a populist message, but then he voted for the fucking billionaire tax cuts and cuts to welfare programs, just like every one of his fucking Republican buddies. So yeah, he talks the right talk, but he's completely full of shit. I don't trust Josh Hawley. All right. Average Joe says, what can we do to get it through Democratic leaders' heads that their human rights and civil rights lip service combined with a refusal to dump AIPAC creates a moral and ethical conflict of interest? That is the reason for their low approval ratings. Average Joe, PG, excellent question. Number one, political pressure. It works on Democrats. It does. Call their offices, go to their offices. Write them letters. Start a political action group where your friends, you and 3 or 4 of your buddies call every single fucking day to let them know this is an important issue that they are fucking wrong on. Number two, you need to not let AIPAC dollars affect you and the people that vote, with you. The reason why AIPAC does this, the reason why there are so many politicians in government who fear AIPAC is because their tactics work. And when they target politicians for removal, they get unelected. That's how that works. And number three, you primary them. Primary them with politicians who are going to do the right things regarding civil rights and Gaza and AIPAC, etc. It's up to us, Average Joe. It is up to us to do the work. And I hope that you will do the work. Do the work with me, man. I can't do it all by myself. All right. Corporal Fly says, primaries like draft day for me, but my candidates never win. Then you're not doing enough work, my guy. It is up to us to elect the good people. I was trying to get Katie Porter to win the primary for Senate in California. I didn't do enough work, though. And Adam Schiff won. Adam Schiff, I think, is great, too. I just preferred Katie Porter. So I happily and enthusiastically voted for Adam Schiff in the general election. Sir Squincelock says, do you support the Patriot Act, or do you think it needs to be revised? I'm not an expert, Sir Squincelot. What I know from broad strokes is that the Patriot Act has been enabling a lot of overreach by the executive and a lot of overreach into what's the word I'm looking for? Where they look at you. What's the word I'm looking for? It's they go into your emails and shit like that. Can't figure the fucking word. Surveillance. It enables a lot of illegal surveillance. And so, yeah, I definitely think that needs to be revised. But again, I'm not an expert in that. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip. Camel Tony says, name every politic ever. Whitney Houston. Anybody get that joke? Anyways. Maya Magda III says, did you see Hegseth may possibly resign and run for office in Tennessee? I did see the reporting that said that he was considering that. Corporal Fly says, I would have preferred Porter too. Yeah, but Adam Schiff is good also. Let's see here. Diego Vargas says, I checked on the APAC website and almost every Democrat accepts their money except for the Bernie squads. Yeah, Diego Vargas, I give the Democratic Party a lot of leeway in who they take money from because they need to stay competitive. And the Republican Party has just so much more fucking money than the Democratic Party does. Now, are there politicians who can afford to eschew that money because they already have great name ID and are already really popular, like AOC and Bernie? Absolutely. Do I think the Democratic Party should stop taking money from APAC? 100%. I do. But is that a realistic thing that they can do and still win elections? I don't know. And I would hazard to guess that if the Democratic Party just completely unilaterally stopped taking APAC money, they probably lose. They probably lose seats, But I don't know. It's an open question. I just don't think that it's as cut and dry as people are making it out to be, because it is a trade-off. You either do the right thing and not take that money, but accept the fact that your race is going to be that much harder, or you take that money, try to win, and then try to fight against the influence of APAC while you're in office. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I can only tell you what I would do. Is I would not take the money. Mia's LV Adventure says, can you explain APAC to me? Absolutely. I forget what APAC stands for, but it's basically a lobbying organization that petitions the government for policies that are beneficial to Israel. Now, normally that would mean you'd have to register as a foreign actor or something. I think it's called like a FARFA or something, the Foreign Agents Registry Act or something, FARA. But what APAC does is they use a loophole. They say, "Oh, we're not actually, we're not actually lobbying for Israel. We are lobbying for the relationship between Israel and America." It's total bullshit because APAC has never once gone against what the government of Israel wants. They always do what the government of Israel wants and lobbies for that. They also are able to skirt that because they get a lot of money from Republican billionaires here in America. They are an extremely right-wing organization. They do give money to everybody so that they can have influence in government. But if you are a progressive Democrat that has ever said anything negative about the government of Israel, they will fund a primary challenger against you. And because they have so much money, they tend to win. They tend to win. Cori Bush is no longer in office because an APAC-funded candidate replaced her. And so Diego Vargas, remember how you're asking me about like all these Democrats that accept APAC money? Like, look at poor Cori Bush. She was a great progressive who was out there with her full fucking voice, standing up to APAC and the Netanyahu government and standing up for the rights of the people living in Palestine. And what was her reward for that? Did the progressive left mobilize to make sure that she won her primary? Maybe they did, but they certainly didn't do it enough because she lost. She lost because of APAC money. Alrighty, let's see here. American Israel Public Affairs Committee, thank you for that. All right, let's see here. Average Joe PG says, thank you for your reply. I am majoring in political science and interned with a congressional representative this summer. I was telling everyone in that office that taking funding from APAC will be a cancer for the candidates in the future, but don't put that shit on me, says Corporal Fly. Yeah, Average Joe, again, I completely agree with that, but I worry. There is the influence of money in politics it's not absolute, but it is enough to fuck us over. And if the Democratic Party unilaterally disarms in taking funding from, bad faith actors like billionaires and giant corporations and APAC, are they going to be able to win enough down ballot races to actually make substantive change in government? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't think anybody does. And so I think that we need to consider how much more beneficial it is to vote for Democrats, even if they take APAC money, than Republicans who take APAC money, because better and better is worse and worse, Alrighty. Diego Vargas says it's legalized corruption. Yes, it is. And we can thank the Republican Party for that. It's the Rocketeer says, I'll take the APAC money, then actively do everything they do not want. That'll teach them. It's the Rocketeer. If you're a House member, then you will be there for 2 years exactly, while APAC funds a challenger against you, Cuz 808, good to see you again, says, hey, I'm IDS and gonna start serving a 2-year mission in Japan. Any tips? What's IDS? Is that active service or something? Like, are you in the military now? And Japan is fucking great, man. I would say check out some onsens. Go to some fucking hot springs. Oh, it's Mormon. Oh, gotcha. You're a Mormon. Yeah, the food there is excellent. I loved Kyoto. I loved Tokyo. There's a Buddhist temple that I went to in Kyoto. First of all, when you go to Kyoto, you got to go to fucking Monkey Park. It's just this place on top of a mountain where all these monkeys hang out, and they're so fucking cute. It's unbelievable. You see pictures of them, and it's unreal. Like how much cuter they are in person than the pictures. And you can go to like a little place where you can feed them through a cage, and it's so fucking cute. But also in Kyoto, there's a temple that's just like beautiful that I think that everybody should go to. I'm gonna look up the name of it real quick because I do believe in supporting this place. Where is it? Where is it? Saihoji, Saihoji. Check out the Saihoji Temple in Kyoto. Right. Let's see here. Scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. I don't think there's anything wrong with APEC. Well, I think you would need to learn a little bit more about what APEC does then, because yeah, Jamal Bowman. Thank you, Diego Vargas. I completely forgot. Yeah, Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, only two of many victims to APEC's campaign money. All right. Let's see here. Average Joe PG says, I keep hearing money doesn't guarantee electoral victories. While this is true, the real issue is that the money causes the elected officials to serve their donors before their constituents. Average Joe PG, it is true that putting more money into a campaign doesn't guarantee victory, but sometimes it pushes the needle just enough. Like, things are a lot of races are so close in this country that just skewing the electorate 1% to 2% can give you a victory. And when you have a lot of money, you can afford to do a bunch of different things. Like one of the strengths of the Trump campaign in 2016 was that they tried everything, and they were able to try everything because they had billions of dollars to spend. Dark money and illegal campaign contributions from Vladimir Putin. Whereas the Democrats have to make like decisions. They have to be like, we have this much money, we have to try doing this. And then when they fail, everybody yells at them for being terrible at marketing, as opposed to the reality of them just it being an unfair system that is stacked against them. All right, Camel Tony says Joe Rogan says a monk can gnaw your face off in 3 seconds. I mean, and he would know. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of TikTok comments. Diego Vargas says Democrats spent $90 million to lose to Mitch McConnell. Money doesn't guarantee anything. That is true, but there are plenty of examples of money pushing the needle just enough. Let's see here. Cuz 808 says I'm a fan of freedom of religion. However, what are your thoughts on cults? I mean, if something is classified as a cult, I think that we should do what we can to disband them, because I believe the definition of a cult has to do with manipulating people and brainwashing them and shit like that. But yeah, freedom of religion, I'm all for. Alrighty, Spirit Moon 6 says, what would MAGA do after Trump is gone after his midterm? Spirit Moon, what an interesting question. I'm not really sure what you mean by him being gone from his midterm, because he's going to be there until at least 2028. The midterms are not going to end Trump's influence. So yeah, what do you mean by that, Spirit Moon 6? Let's see here. Spirit Moon says, I mean, after 4 years done, will MAGA move on or make a new hat for a president? So a couple things about that, Spirit Moon. Number one, we all need to recognize and realize and internalize that Trump is going to stay in office, or try to stay in office, until he's dead. He's going to try to run for a third term or declare martial law and cancel all elections. Like, he's going to try. I don't know if he's going to be successful. I don't know exactly how he's going to try, but he is going to try. So Trump leaving after 4 years is not a guarantee. It is not a certainty by any stretch. Now, if he passes away, where's the MAGA movement going to go to? My guess, I don't make predictions on this channel, but it'll probably go to one of his kids, because they'll just follow the name. They'll just follow the Trump name. And they've already kind of been making moves to suggest that they are, going to be more involved in politics going forward. But then there was a bunch of other people who are going to try to take the mantle, like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Josh Hawley. They're all going to be fighting for that base, that voter base, to take it over. And I don't know who's going to win, but yeah, it's not going to be the same. Nobody that is going for the crown has the juice that Donald Trump has, and has the decades of gaslighting America into thinking that he's an incredible businessman that Donald Trump has. Let's see here. Kaz808 says, I can't stand Trump, but why is my mom's 401k doing better with Trump? I mean, the market was doing great under the Biden administration, Kaz808, and it's still going up because the damage from Trump's trade wars has not hit America yet. And there are a bunch of different reasons for that. A bunch of companies were stockpiling goods to avoid paying money for the tariffs. A lot of the tariffs have been delayed or pushed back or negotiated or whatever. So we haven't really felt the negative effects of it yet. But every economist is saying that it is coming. The dollar is weakening. The American bond market is cratering. Unemployment is going up. Inflation is going up. So, will we see that be affected in the stock market? I'm not 100% sure if or when that will happen. But I'm not confident that it is going to continue its upward trend based on the damage that Trump has done to America's standing in the global economy. Alrighty. Scott Clara says, Candace doesn't sound as crazy lately. Yeah, I mean, that she's doing that on purpose, but she is still devoting like hours of her life to claiming that Macron's wife is a man. Like she's still cuckoo bananas. Like let's not what do you call it? Let's not mince words here. When she and other politicians on the right make their pivots to normalcy, it's a con. It's a ruse. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. Nishbish says, I think Barron would be a great replacement for Trump. What a weird thing to say. All right, yeah. You're not asking questions, so you are out of here. Piss says, you know about the Russians laundering money through Trump's properties during the first term? I don't know about it specifically happening during the first term, but I am familiar with Russian oligarchs laundering money through real estate through people like Donald Trump, up to and including Donald Trump. Alrighty, let's see here. Joni Calder says, how do we get rid of Stephen Miller and Beauvais? We need to win elections, Joni Calder. We need to win elections. That is the only way that we can get rid of them, because so long as Republicans hold the levers of power, they get to decide who are in those positions. Let's see here. Rodri says he's spewing BS. That's not a question, and it's also a lie. Everything I'm saying is accurate. Flamingo Mo says, what is JD up to? I don't know, probably a sectional. Anybody get that joke? Anybody? All right, scrolling back over to Twitch, we got Average Joe. PG says, when Trump is gone, the MAGA movement will dip. Unfortunately, their core philosophy of white and Christian nationalism, eliminating civil rights words. Let's see here. We'll transfer to the next best option, whoever that may be. Yeah, probably Average Joe, but the margins by which Trump and his coalition win elections is extremely thin. If America is able to do something to inoculate themselves against the misinformation and propaganda perpetuated by the billionaire class, and the MAGA movement loses Trump and, they get Tucker Carlson or whoever, and that's going to lose them some percentage of their following because they don't have the same riz that Donald Trump has, then, maybe we start to see some more substantive swings in elections, but I don't know, this is all hyperbole and, what's the word I'm looking for? Sixer says sectional. Thank you. A pullout. East Meets Wesley. Thank you. I'm glad my joke is getting, is getting acknowledged. Eternal Madness says, is there any way to actually break the uniparty? Of the Republican Party? We gotta elect Democrats. That's the way you do it. Mason says, why are you dodging my question? I didn't see your question, Mason. Diego Vargas says, which left influencer would beat Ben Shapiro in a debate? Sam Cedar? So here's the thing. There's no winning debates against professional debaters like Ben Shapiro, because no matter how many good points you make, they do their little tricks and they do their little cognitive dissonances to make it seem like they won. That's why you got somebody like Destiny going into a debate with Ben Shapiro, and then they both leave that debate and then use clips to post on their social media, and they both claim that they won, and they'll use the exact same clip just with different headings. You know, conservative owns liberal, liberal destroys conservative. You know, blah blah blah. But they're lying. Like, conservative pundits, conservative debaters are lying. They are cherry picking data. They are using cognitive dissonances to make it seem like they are making good points. So yeah, there's no winning, you know, regardless of how smart and more right you are, you know. Alrighty, RS Cap says, what's your thought on the two-party system? I think that America would benefit from having ranked choice voting, which would open up the electoral system to other political parties. That being said, the Democratic Party is the only one that is open to ranked choice voting. Republicans are trying to make it illegal. So if you want to do any of that, you still have to support the Democratic Party. Also, I should throw this in there in addition. I think that the two-party system gets blamed for a lot of ills that are not their fault, that are mainly the fault of the Republican Party. Alex says, why do you support Trump and Vance? I don't. Will says, watch Piers Morgan steamroll Destiny. He turns Destiny into complete hypocrite, politics aside. I disagree with that, Will. I think, again, Piers Morgan is a liar, and he uses debate tricks to try to make it seem like the people that are arguing against him are wrong. Hey, I'm a cowboy. Ba-boo, ba-boo, ba-boo. All right, Fog of War Productions, great to see you again. And I did see all of your emails, Fog of War Productions. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to respond to them here or over email, but I do have some thoughts about it. We can get into it later if you like. The best way to beat Ben Shapiro in a debate is to bring up his sister's acting career. I don't know what that means, but it is fascinated. I'm definitely going to give that a Google. Alrighty, excellent questions, everybody. Excellent live today. Alan Lars says, do you know about Russia signing an agreement with Poland to defend them before Germans invaded? LOL. I do not know anything about that. Lesbian says, I read that they were pausing the tariffs hits until after the midterms. Potentially, Lesbian. And also they're pausing a lot of the social welfare cuts that they made in the big, beautiful bill. So the Medicaid cuts are potentially not going to be felt. The welfare cuts and the Social Security cuts are not going to be felt until after the midterms, potentially, you know. All right, scrolling down the bottom of the TikTok comments. Let's see here. Asher Lanham says, what do you think about Obama cheating? There's absolutely zero evidence that he did, Asher, so I don't know what you're referring to. Diego Vargas says, Michael Jordan or LeBron, who's the GOAT? I don't know. They both seem pretty good. I think so long as you have a good time, everybody wins. Let's see here. Photo Joe says, RCV has failed in every state it's been tried. One person, one vote, vote counting shenanigans. That is inaccurate, Photo Joe. Ranked choice voting has not failed in every state that it has been tried in. It has worked great in some places. I have not seen any places where it has quote unquote failed, as you say. Flamingo Woe says, why can't the Dems speed up the BBB cuts? I mean, I don't know if there's anything that can be done to speed it up. It's kind of up to the states. And I also don't think that Democrats are incentivized to speed up the pain of their constituents. You know, Democrats will try to help people regardless of who's in charge. It's one of the reasons why I think they're a better political party, where the Republican Party doesn't give a shit about hurting their constituents so long as they can blame it on Democrats and then use that to win elections. And there's dozens of examples of that. Let's see here. So yeah, and also they're not in charge, so I don't see how they would speed it up. Carbine says, "Did you finish Abundance?" I did, and I have a bunch of thoughts about it. Photo Joe says, "That's because you don't live in a state with ranked choice voting. I live in Maine. They use it to cheat." I find that to be a very sus thing to say, Photo Joe. I do not believe that that is accurate. Camel Tony says, politically speaking, Ben Shapiro's sister has money. How interesting. How interesting. Alrighty. Oreo20 says, would it be a good idea for Apply for President to have a test like CEOs take for apply to CEOs? I don't know about the test that CEOs have to take to apply to CEOs. But yeah, I don't see why not. You know, let's make sure that our presidents are, you know, with it mentally. Let's see here. Photo Joe says, go to odni.gov. Thousands of pages of evidence declassified. Yeah, that sounds like bullshit, Photo Joe. Sorry, I'm not going to allow you to spew that nonsense on here. Osher Lunham says, no, he doesn't. You probably are unauthentic as fuck and are mad that a 79-year-old would beat you. A 79-year-old would beat me? What the hell are you talking about, Osher Lamb? Let's see here. Osher Lamb, yeah. Yeah, you're not hearing good faith, Osher Lamb. I'm not talking to you, bruh, he says. Well, you should have tagged the person you were talking to. As of now, I'm done with you. Fogmore Production says, are we power scaling Jared right now? I don't know what that means. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm not signing off just yet, but I just wanted to say thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all the support, the likes, the share, the gifts. Every bit of support that you give me helps me to continue doing the show. And I do this show because I think it helps, guys. You know, if politics was great and everybody was not buying all the misinformation and propaganda, I would stop doing this show tomorrow. I like doing it. I like engaging with people on politics, but I really am just doing it to help. And so if you help me, then I can potentially use this show to help more generally. If there are any questions that you want answered, feel free to shoot me an email through my website. My DMs are open also. I do get back to people, and Fog War Productions, I am 100% going to get back to you. Sorry about not responding to those emails earlier. Yeah, but my goal here, my crusade, the gospel that I'm trying to spread, it does not stop when this live stream stops. I'm trying to get more people engaged and informed in politics. I'm getting more people to do the work of unelecting every Republican, of primarying the Democrats that we don't like, so that we can have better politicians, better government, better country, so that we can all have a better quality of life and better health outcomes and fewer mental health crises, and we don't have corporations fucking spilling all their chemical runoffs into our drinking water and our breathing air and shit like that, guys, because we don't have to live like this. We could have a better country where people aren't fucking living in camps on the street while billionaires are flying their private jets to their private mansions to their private fucking yachts. You know, we can have nice things in this country, but we have to do the work because the billionaire class is using their money to eliminate all of the work that we are already doing. We got to step it up because the only advantage that we have is in numbers of people. You know, the billionaire class does not stop doing this work ever, and they pay people to do this work for them. You know, it's imagine like a tug of war where they are paying people to be professional rope tuggers and also paying people on our side of the rope to pull in the opposite direction and argue with people about which side we should be pulling on, and paying people to say, pulling doesn't do anything. Look, this rope isn't fucking moving anywhere, you know? So yeah, we got to do the work, guys. And if you want to know what the work is, check out my Discord. I got a thread posted about what the work is. So please join me in this crusade of doing this work, because that's the only way that we fucking get out of this, guys. Alrighty, let me see. We got some final questions here. Average Joe PG says, in your opinion, what is more important issue that needs to be addressed? Disinformed voters or apathetic non-voters? ¿Por qué no los dos? Average Joe PG. Why can't we do both? I think apathetic non-voters are probably an easier sell than disinformed voters, because when people get some information and they buy that information, it's very hard to dissuade them of that information. But I mean, I guess you could make an argument that apathy is its own thing that you would need to, you know, disabuse somebody of. So yeah, you know, I don't know, but let's do both. There are more non-voters in this country than there are voters, so there are lots of votes out there to get, so let's fucking do it. You know, let's fucking get on there. Alrighty, let's see here. Ben Drewy says, viewpoint on hunting. I'm against all violence, regardless of if it is against people or property or animals. But, you know, it's perfectly legal to take out a gun and go shoot a deer or a bear or whatever. I think it's legal to shoot those things. But, yeah, so, you know, you guys go ahead and do it. I don't think anybody should. I'm not going to. Animal Hub says, do you think the next president will be a Democrat? I don't know. I sure hope so, Animal Hub. And maybe you will join me in doing the work of making that happen. Fogmore Productions says, I think a big stance should be is that anxiety is the enemy and we should fight it in politics. Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure how that plays out, Fog of War, but I'm open to it. Will says, the problem with ranked choice voting is it misses Condorcet criterion. Will, I don't know what that means. And honestly, Will, everything you say sounds kind of like bullshit. Let's see here. Flamingo Mo says, do you think Alito and Thomas are really going to retire soon? Absolutely. Let's see here. Scott Clower has pointed out that because of the Trump and Republicans' tax bills, that billionaires are able to write off the expenses for their corporate jets. That's some Republican shit, y'all. That is some Republican fucking bullshit. That by itself should be enough to never vote for a Republican, to work your fucking ass off to unelect every Republican. How fucking dare they make it so that billionaires don't have to pay fucking taxes to buy and maintain their private jets? Are you fucking kidding me? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's see here. All right. Power scaling yields comparing two characters and arguing which one would win in a fight. Let's see here. We vote based on anxiety, and we shouldn't do it because it clouds our judgment. Yeah, maybe. I guess. I mean, an argument could be made that the anxiety of what Republicans would do is a good motivating factor, the same way that Republicans push the anxiety of what Democrats would do if getting elected. So yeah, I'm not really sure what the benefit there would be. I don't encourage people to increase the anxiety of the general public, but I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how that would play out. Let's see here. Will says just means the majority will always win. Is there a problem with the majority winning elections? Well, I'm not really sure what the issue is there, my guy. Carmine says I could see that for someone turning into Fox News all the time. The anxiety stuff. Yeah, totally, guys. All right, looks like things have calmed down here for a bit, so thank you again, everybody, for being here. And Mia's LV Adventure says, I think we need to get rid of the Electoral College. Do you agree? 100% Mia. And this is another great thing that we can do, without waiting for elections, is we can put pressure on our elected officials to sign our states up for the for the National Popular Vote, for the National Interstate Popular Vote Compact. God damn it, I used to have that name memorized and I just lost it. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is what it is. And basically what it says is it invalidates the Electoral College without having to have a constitutional convention. So call up your state representatives, ask them if we are part of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, and if they are not, tell them that you want to be a part of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Diego Vargas says, will Trump cancel Secret Service protection for Biden? He can. He will if he can. Alrighty. Tap says, I enjoy listening to your life. I know you corrected it with live, Tap, but I also really am enjoying, the idea of you just like listening to me live my life. Tap says we disagree politically. How come you never put things in the chats then, Tap, for us to engage on? I would love to. Man. Let's see here. Fog War Production says, why should a small population state like Utah join the compact? Because every little bit counts. If you save pennies, the dollars will follow. Carmine says it's been 3 days and you haven't said dark money. I think you just missed it, Carmine, because I definitely said it yesterday or the day before. Tap says, do you do political polity? That stuff is funny. A lot of my comedy is based on politics, but not all of it. Will says, you want majority to win, don't you? That's Condorcet winning. It ensures majority always wins. I don't really see the issue with that, Will. Right now, we are suffering under minority rule in this country, so yeah, I'm sure that there's some theoretical version of majority bias that you could give me that would be like a really big problem, but I think that right now what we're seeing is the effect of the minority winning, with the minority jerry-rigging the process to take power over the majority of the citizens, where the government is ruling not for us, but for the billionaires that help them win elections, like we are watching what happens when the majority doesn't win, and it's terrible. So maybe we should try the other way, Alrighty. Let's see here. Average Joe PG says, thanks for the stream and thanks for taking my questions. Just randomly stumbled upon your channel. You have gained 1 follower, lol. Thank you, Average Joe. I do need to grow my Twitch audience more. I don't have nearly enough followers over there, so I appreciate you being here, and being randomly stumbled upon is the only way that I get new followers. All right, everybody. Have an excellent Thursday. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the questions and the gifts and the comments. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care.